Hello. In this study, we will be going through a passage in Genesis chapter 10. And this study is in response to a question that was sent by a visitor to the website recently. So before we talk about what the question is, let's quickly read the passage that is related to that question. It's Genesis chapter 10, verses 15 through 18. Which read, And Canaan begat Sidon his firstborn, and Heth, and the Jebusite, and the Amorite, and the girgashite, and the hivite, and the arkite, and the Sinite, and the arvadite, and the Zemarite, and the Hamathite. And afterward were the families of the Canaanites spread abroad. So as you can see, this passage is talking about the descendants of Canaan. And the question that was asked was that since the Bible talks about the 7 evil spirits, the 7 evil tribes that the people of Israel had to conquer, and as you may know, on the Shamah-Elim website, we talk about the meaning behind each of of these evil nations and the 7 evil spirits that they represent. So the question is, if there are 7 evil spirits or 7 evil types of nations in the land of Canaan, why does this passage talk about 11 descendants of Canaan? So then the question would be, what is the connection between the 7 evil spirits and these 11 descendants? There seems to be, you could say, an inconsistency between the two numbers. And the question would be how to reconcile the two, or how the two could possibly be related one to another. Now, when we saw this question come in, it was quite interesting to me personally, because 11 or 12 years ago, approximately, I can't quite recall, but it was a long time ago, I dare say definitely over a decade ago, that the Lord spoke some things, or many things, about this passage into my heart. And I remember that as you know, that day when the Lord began to say these things, and I started writing them down, that I became convinced that the day would come when we would be able to share these things, but it would be in the context of a mighty move of God. In other words, that we could not be talking about these things until the move of God would break out. It's as if we, as the remnant, had to focus on setting a foundation, a spiritual foundation, so that the river of God could begin to flow. And as that river began to flow with power, then things such as the principles hidden behind passages like this one would start coming out. So that's why, even though these things were in my heart, even from 10 years ago, I had never felt led to share about them or talk about them to others in a significant way, because it just seemed like it was not the time. Like if we started talking about these things, it would suddenly act or serve as a distraction from other spiritual foundations that had to be laid first. But unfortunately, as you may know from reading the website, that and I hope that you also know that from your from the understanding in your heart and your relationship with the Lord, that move of God that was about to come upon the earth through this generation was aborted. Because this generation was unable to line itself up with God's will. Its heart was unwilling to line itself up with God's heart, and as a result, God ended up rejecting this generation and declaring that His revival would not come through the people of this time period. So, with the revival aborted, I personally thought that concepts such as the ones that we're going to talk about in this video would not be coming out. So when the question came in and I began to ask the Lord about whether or not we should talk about these things, it seemed as if the Lord was saying that the time had come to share them. And I personally still don't understand what happened, why there was a change of plans, you could say, regarding the sharing of these concepts. It just seems like it's out of time. But for some reason, the Lord has declared, that's what I believe in my heart, that these things must be shared now. Maybe they were supposed to be shared at this time anyway, because the move of God was going to start picking up strength in 2012, as we have shared several times. The door began to open in 1998, and there was a 7-year preparation period until 2005, an initial preparation period, a period of spiritual awakening of God's remnant. And then from 2005 until this year, 2012, there was going to be a 7-year intensive preparation period for that remnant that had been awoken in the first 7 years. And then as 2012 began to unfold, then the move of God was going to break out, first in America, first in the Northeast, and then spreading towards the South and West, and then across the pond and into the UK, and from the UK all the way down to Italy, from Italy up to Germany, and then from Germany towards all of Central and Eastern Europe. And as that was beginning to happen, then Israel would light up in the spirit, and then there'd be a move of God breaking across the Middle East, and the Iraq War and all the things that have been happening with the Arab Spring, as it's called. All of these things were intended to set up the atmosphere for that move of God across the Arab world. And from there, then it would start hitting Asia in a deep way, hitting China and hitting Korea and Japan, not without some resistance, but then it would start flowing across Eastern Asia, and the whole world would start getting enveloped with the glory of God in that latter day move. But all of that was aborted. But it was supposed to have started in its full blown manifestation this year, 2012. So that could possibly be the reason why we have to share this at this time. But still, I'm still struggling to understand what exactly is it made it necessary for us to share this now. But given that that's what the Lord is impressing upon our hearts, we have to go ahead and do it, even if we don't quite understand yet exactly what the Lord is intending with sharing this, apparently out of time or out of season. But we believe it's what the Lord wants us to share at this point. So if we do a listing of the descendants of Canaan, I know that there's a summary that or an outline that accompanies this video, as we've done with other recent videos. But just for the sake of the visual effect here, let's just quickly list the descendants of Canaan that are listed in this passage. So in verse 15, there are two descendants that are listed. In verse 15, you have Sidon and Heth. And Sidon is called the firstborn, and then Heth is mentioned just by itself without any additional information, just Heth. And then in verse 16, three descendants are mentioned: the Jebusite, and then the Amorite, and then the girgashite. So these are the three that are mentioned in verse 16. And then in verse 17, three more are mentioned, and they would be the hivite, the arkite, and the Canaanite. And then in verse 18, you have the last three that are mentioned, and they would be the Arvadite, the Arvadite, the Amorite, and the Hamathite. So these are the 11 descendants of Canaan that are listed in this passage. 3 in each of these 3 verses, giving us 9, and then 2 at the beginning in verse 15. Now, I hope you can read that in the video, but one thing that draws one's attention right off the bat when one looks at this list is that the first 2, for some reason, excuse me, are mentioned as proper names, Sidon and then Heth. But then all the other ones, the other 9 descendants, are not excuse me, are not mentioned by a proper name. They're mentioned as tribes. You could say the Jebusite, the Amorite, the Girgashite, the Hivite, the Arkite, the Canaanite, the Arvadite, the Amorite, the Hamathite. So all of these are ites. In other words, they are referred to by tribal name. It's as if a group of people are mentioned, not just an individual, because the Lord, the Holy Spirit, could have said, instead of Jebusite, he could have said Jebus or something like that, a proper name, the name of an individual person. Or, for example, instead of Sinite, he could have said Sin, who was the name of an individual person. So he could have used individual names, but he chose to use tribal names. So that right off the bat, we can see that the Holy Spirit is differentiating the first 2 descendants of the list from the rest of the descendants that appear in the other 3 verses. So and so the Lord is saying you have to take these 2 separately and see them in terms of a different functionality. These 2 have a different functionality to the other 9. So having that in mind, let's start meditating on each member of the list, starting with these 2, Sidon and Heth. The name Sidon literally means hunting, and it has a strong connotation of somebody who is catching fish or hunting down any type of animal. So the fact that Sidon is mentioned at the top of the list as a proper name and is referred to as the firstborn means that God is saying this fellow Sidon is being highlighted because he indicates what the rest of the list is about. So from that we can get in the spirit that Sidon, the firstborn, is the Holy Spirit's way of saying to us, this list is about how the Canaanite spirit hunts people down, how that evil spirit goes and takes people and places them under its dominion. So this is a list that describes the roadmap, the process or stages that the Canaanite spirit goes through in order to hunt a person's soul. As you may recall, the spirit of Canaan, the Canaanite spirit, is a spirit of addictions and low passions. So as we go through this list, we have to see it in that context, in the context of a spirit that traps people in addictions. They can be drug addictions or sexual addictions, any type of addiction that involves low passions, where you become trapped and where you lose control of yourself and you become addicted. So that's the context of what we'll be meditating or studying in this list. It's how the Canaanite spirit of addictions and low passions hunts people down. Then you have Heth, who is mentioned right alongside Sidon. And Heth literally means terror. And Hittites, the name Hittite literally means sons of Heth or sons of terror. So from that we can see that that Heth is. We saw that Sidon is explaining the theme, the reason behind the list, and Heth is in a sense describing the tactic or the methodology that the Canaanite spirit uses to hunt people down. The Hittite spirit, as we share on the website, is a spirit of deceit, a spirit that operates by stealth tactics. It's a spirit that uses disguises and that tries to manipulate people through very deep emotions, and that's why the Hittite spirit is manifested in prophets who go bad. Prophets can manifest very deep emotions and very deep emotional flows of the spirit. That's what the prophetic endowment is for. But when it's misguided, then Hittite spirits begin to operate through it, and it's a very intense flow that comes from it feels like it comes from well within, but they are not from God. They are spirits of deceit that operate through emotions in a very powerful way, and they are very they like to be hidden. They operate outside the visible realm. So therefore we can say that that the fact that Heth is there is the Holy Spirit's way of indicating that that the list that's going to come from then on down denotes how the Canaanite spirit uses stealth tactics, hidden tactics from the left-hand side to trap people. As we've shared on the website, the Hittite spirit is a left-handed spirit. It's a spirit, and the left hand has to do with the invisible, and the right hand has to do more with the visible. The right hand has more to do with the mind. The left hand has to do more with the emotions. So we can see that this list is a list that is imbued with a spirit of deceit, of a hidden stealth agenda. And the fact that Heth means terror means that looming behind all of that is a very dark spirit of terror. When you're living in an atmosphere of terror and darkness, that's kind of what begins to operate as the Canaanite spirit hunts people down. It creates this atmosphere of terror and hopelessness and despair, because the Hittite spirit is a spirit of despair. When you have these deep emotions where you want to die, where you don't want to live anymore, oftentimes it's the Hittite spirit just torturing you or attacking you in a very profound way. So we can see that there's a very dark, sinister connotation to everything that follows in the list. It's a hidden, deceitful agenda that operates through stealth means. It's a left-handed agenda, and it's intended to create an atmosphere of darkness and terror and hopelessness. That's what comes with the Canaanite spirit as it hunts people down. So the first one, Sidon, says what the list is about. So Sidon defines the theme behind the list, and Heth defines the tactics behind the list. So now, if we go to verse 16, it says that so it mentions three types of spirits: the jebusite, the Amorite, and the girgashite. So the jebusite, what does that represent? As we've shared before, the jebusite spirit is a legalistic spirit. It's a spirit that enforces laws in order to have the will of an Amorite king satisfied. It is like the police force. The jebusite spirit is the apostolic endowment gone bad. So it is very judgment-oriented, but when it's not in the spirit, it becomes very legalistic. It starts enforcing laws of the soul, not laws of the spirit. And it's all intended to please an Amorite will, the will of an Amorite king. So that's what the jebusite spirit is about. So the question would be, how does that relate to the Canaanite spirit? And as you meditate on it, it becomes evident that the jebusite spirit represents this pressure that is exerted by by a social group or maybe a social subgroup that tries to influence the laws in your mind. In other words, when Satan comes, when there's a Canaanite spirit of deceit, a Canaanite spirit of hunting you down through deceit, what Satan does is that he knows he cannot appeal directly to your emotions, to your left-handed emotions. He knows he cannot do that because all of us have an inbred mechanism of laws, of laws and judgments, of right-handed principles. Because as Romans declares, God has placed His laws in every human being's heart in one way or another. Even people who are unborn, who are not born again, have an awareness of what's right and what's wrong. We all have that innate sense of there being an absolute truth, and there being things that are good and things that are evil. We all have that. So that's why, for example, in the Garden of Eden, when Satan tried to come against the woman, against mankind, he didn't start by appealing to the deliciousness of the fruit that God had said that they shouldn't eat. He didn't say, "Oh, look at the fruit, how tasty it is." He didn't start like that. If you go to Genesis 3, you will see that Satan started reasoning with the woman. Why? Because the woman, at that point, not having sin within her, had a predisposition to doing what is right. She had laws and principles in her heart. So if Satan just came with a left-handed display, an emotional appeal to eat from the fruit, from the tree, she would not have gone for it. So that's why he started reasoning with her. He started attacking her mind in order to reshape her laws, the laws that were inside of her. That's why he came and said, well, if the thing is, God knows that when you eat from that tree, you will be like Him. And the thing is, He doesn't want you to be like Him. But you know that you have to be like Him. And the woman knew, because it was a fact. Satan knew it. The woman knew it. And God also had put it in the woman's heart that we as human beings were destined to grow into the fullness or the likeness of the God who had created us. We were created in His image and His likeness, and we were designed to grow into His image. So when he said that to her, he was appealing to things that she knew were true, but he slowly started twisting things. But the point is that it was all through reasoning. There was obviously falsehood hidden underneath, but he was addressing the barriers in her mind that were preventing her approaching the tree and eating from it. So Satan always starts with a right-handed attack. The jebusite spirit, as you may have seen on the website if you read about these evil spirits, is a right-handed spirit. It's a spirit of laws and judgments. It's just that it's laws and judgments from the soul, not from the spirit. They are judgments of the flesh and laws of the flesh, not laws of the spirit. But they are right-handed laws. So the Jebusite spirit is a right-handed spirit. Now, how does it manifest itself within a Canaanite context of hunting souls down? For example, if you look at a high school, at a typical high school in America or or a secondary school somewhere else, you will see that generally there are you could say there's a set of laws and principles that all the teenagers in that high school or that secondary school abide by. It's as if somehow it is established within the teenagers' minds that cool people do this, that, and the other. And you and I know that when you look back at all all the laws that teenagers live by, you say, wow, those are stupid laws. I mean, how can anybody think that that's the way you're supposed to act, or that that is what's good, or that's what is evil? But when you are trapped within that cultural context of the high school or of the secondary school, and you're a teenager, if you are easily influenced, you will start believing these things as if they were like the truth, like biblical truth. That cool people are the ones who smoke, or the cool people are the ones who go sleeping around, or the cool people are the ones who do this or that, or who wear these types of clothes as opposed to other types of clothes. So within this very Canaanite atmosphere of the atmosphere of the modern teenager, you have Jebusite spirits coming in and establishing laws, and people live by those laws. To me, it's personally very interesting how the Canaanite spirit is so anti-judgment. It criticizes people when people start saying this is right or this is wrong. But in an underhanded way, the Canaanite spirit comes with the intention of establishing different laws, and the very teenagers who are so anti-judgment are the very same teenagers who go around saying that guy is not cool, or that gal is not cool because she's not doing this or that. So they are going around judging people. The difference is that they're not judging by biblical standards or spiritual standards. They're judging by soul standards. They're not judging by standards of the spirit, but they're still making judgments, and they're saying this is bad or this is good. So the Jebusite spirit is a spirit of societal pressure. It's the spirit of peer pressure that is very strong in Canaanite communities. Is activated through Jebusite agents. The Jebusite agents come and tell people, you are not cool if you don't do this. You're not cool if you don't believe in evolution. You're not cool if you don't believe that Barack Hussein Obama is the greatest gift to mankind in history. You're not cool if you don't think that that global warming is the truth. So you start having this inundation, this Jebusite pressure, and this Jebusite pressure comes with very simplistic arguments that try to fool you into thinking that when you accept these laws, you're being reasonable, that you're being logical and reasonable. I mean, that's what's so deceptive about how the Canaanite spirit uses these Jebusite agents, because by the time they're done with you, you think that you have reasoned your way into a set of laws that are true, when in fact what Satan did was twist your understanding, twist your logic to get you to believe false laws and principles. But that's what the Jebusite spirit comes to do. It comes to redefine your concept of right and wrong. And one of the tactics the Jebusite spirit uses is it says to you that if everyone around you believes this to be true, then it must be true. Besides, you don't want to stick out like a sore thumb and bear all the conflictive consequences of thinking differently, do you? So the Jebusite spirit comes to reason with you. It comes to say, if everybody else is doing it within your group or social subgroup, it must be true. Otherwise, why would they be doing it? Why would they be believing it? So notice that spirit is reasoning with you. And then it says to you, assume for a moment that you disagree with the rest of the group. What do you think is going to happen? And then as you start reasoning it, you realize you're going to have conflict. You're going to stick out like a sore thumb. You're going to get criticized. You're going to get attacked. You're going to be called unreasonable, uncool, a troglodyte, whatever. And as you go through the list of consequences, you say, wow, the reasonable thing to do is to go along with the group and to accept what they say, because I have much to gain and very little to lose by adopting this belief system. It's a very important thing when you're dealing with the Jebusite spirit, is that it deals with very, very simplistic arguments. They are almost childish in their nature. And if you're able to get past the initial shock of that Jebusite spirit trying to convince you, you can very quickly begin to demolish all the arguments that the Jebusite spirit is establishing against you. For example, the woman, if she had taken a different attitude against the snake, against the serpent, when the serpent was trying to reason with her, she could have realized, okay, I know that I have to be like God eventually. Now, if God is trying to keep me from being like Him, why would I want to be like Him? Because that would mean that God is selfish. And why would I want to be like God if that means that I would be selfish myself? So it would have been very simple to understand that if being like God is something that is worthy of having, then you can't start off by assuming that God is bad. Because if God is bad, why do you want to be like Him? And that's just one little thing that could have come to the woman's mind as she was being bombarded with all that false reasoning. But she gave in. So that's a very important thing. When you come across a Jebusite, the Jebusite will start telling you some things. He'll start sounding reasonable, but after you cut through the baloney, you will see that there is nothing behind the reasoning, because it eventually boils down to this: everybody else is doing it, everybody else thinks like this, so that must mean it's true. That's basically what it boils down to. So it's always a very external type pressure. The Jebusite spirit pressures you from the outside, trying to destroy the laws and judgments in your heart. And it's up to you to say, okay, I yield. And if you yield, then the Jebusite spirit comes and dismantles all your judgment system and places in the judgment system of the soul. But if you hold fast, if you hold true, eventually you'll start seeing the wisdom of God operating through you, and you'll start dismantling the logic of the Jebusite spirit, and you'll start speaking with the wisdom that will just completely obliterate the Jebusite reasoning that's coming against you. That doesn't mean the Jebusite spirit will not continue to attack you, but by then you will be safe, and you'll be operating at a higher level of wisdom. And you will look down at the Jebusites and wonder, what in the world are they thinking? Because they operate at a very banal, very basic level. But the idea here is that the Canaanite spirit is trying to break down the moral scruples in you that are preventing you from doing what the Canaanite spirit wants you to do. So he starts attacking your laws and judgments through this societal pressure, this Jebusite pressure, this legalistic pressure that says you have to do this because this is how we do things here. So it comes with right-handed reasoning, but it's very superficial reasoning that it can be easily dismantled if you hold fast in the Spirit. And if you hold fast in the Spirit, then boom, 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 the Lord will begin to give you the wisdom to start breaking down all these Jebusite arguments. So that's the Jebusite spirit. Now the Amorite spirit, as we share on the website, the Amorite spirit is a spirit of unrighteous conquest. The Amorite is the evangelist gone bad. And the Amorite spirit is a spirit of opportunity, and when the Amorite spirit is operating, in the soul, when the spirit of conquest is operating in the soul, it becomes the spirit of unrighteous opportunism. It takes advantage of opportunities to further an end. And since the Amorite is disconnected from God, then his end is not to establish conquest for the glory of God. It's to establish, to do conquest in order to aggrandize him or herself. That's what the Amorite is after, self-aggrandizement. And when it sees a door of opportunity, its natural inclination, which comes from God, that is to take advantage of the opportunity, but it does it does that opportunism in a very unrighteous way. And as we share on the website, the Amorite spirit is a fornication spirit, and fornication, as opposed to adultery, is when you use other people to gratify your own desires without regard for the person that you're using. The other person is just a means to a personal end, and once you're done with that person, you throw the person away as if it were a disposable bottle, a plastic bottle. You don't care for it anymore. You're done with it, and you move on to the next person you're going to use. So that's the Amorite spirit, and so it's a spirit of opportunism, and so what happens is the Canaanite spirit comes first with a Jebusite spirit to start breaking down your moral scruples, to start twisting around your laws and judgments so that you can start accepting what the Canaanite spirit is proposing you do. And after it's done that, then the Amorite agents swarm in. And the Amorite agents take advantage of your conquest, of your desire to conquer, because that is an inbred quality of man. God made us conquerors. That's why when He put man on earth, it reads in Genesis 1 that He said, "Go and take dominion of the earth." Genesis 1:26, a very famous passage. Go and take dominion of the earth. So we are we are wired with a desire to conquer. So after the Jebusite agents have come and reshaped our mind, then the Amorite agents start swarming in and target our heart, and they start saying, appealing to your sense of conquest. So it says, you can do it. Now, okay, the Jebusite spirits just proved to you that what you thought was bad was not as bad as you thought it was. So now that you have that conscious thing out of the way, look at it. There's the opportunity. Go and do it. Go and do it. Take advantage of the opportunity. So, but as it's doing that to you, it is making you see people from a very cold perspective. You start seeing people as means for self gratification, as means to satisfy your own personal ends, and you'll want to take advantage of these people, use them, and then throw them away. So it's a very dehumanizing spirit in that sense. It turns you into this user. You become a user of other people, and but it appeals. These Amorite agents appeal to your sense of conquest. You can do it. So the Amorite spirit asks. If you ask the Amorite spirit, I'm sorry, why should I do this? The Amorite spirit will say, you should do it because you can. That's why you're going to do it. You are doing it because you can do it. And by doing it, you're proving how powerful you are, that you are your own king, that you can go and take what you want. So they do it because they can. That's what the Amorite agents come to do to you. So that's why, after Satan had kind of dismantled a bit of the woman's thinking in the garden, he then said, look at the tree. It's right there. It's right there just for the taking. So he then started appealing to the woman's inbred desire for conquest. So she saw the tree as a means to gain a personal end. She, in a sense, dehumanized the tree. She turned the tree into a mere object for her own personal aggrandizement or glorification. And it's right there. Just take advantage of it. See, nobody's looking. God is not here right now. You can go and take it if you want to. That's what the Amorite agents start to do. So we've seen what the Jebusite agents do. We've seen a little bit of what the Amorite agents do. So now, what does the girgashite mean? The girgashite. So, as we've shared on the website, the girgashite spirit is a spiritualizing spirit. In other words, it's a very earthly spirit that gets you to focus on the visible. So what happens is that when the girgashite agents come in and start taking all the invisible spiritual components to what you're about to do, to what the Canaanite spirit is prompting you to do. It's as if you lose the concept of the invisible, and you start focusing on the visible, and you start saying, what is so wrong with that? Because, for example, thinking like if you're in the Garden of Eden and you've been told you can't eat from that tree, so in your mind you are aware that there's something fundamentally wrong. That when the moment you start stretching your hand to grab that fruit and eat it, you're doing more than feeding your stomach. There is something invisible happening there that is not good. That's what Adam and the woman knew. They knew that there was something invisible, intangible, something deeply wrong with doing that. Even if, like for example, if you took a video of it, it wouldn't seem to be anything wrong. I mean, it's just a fruit. It's just a fruit, and they were hungry. And why couldn't they just take from this fruit as opposed to any other fruit? So the girgashite spirit starts appealing to your visible senses and starts peeling away all the spiritual components to what you're about to do. So that's why the woman, when she saw the tree, she said, "Wow, that's good for eating." And it's just a tree, and it's just fruit. What is so wrong about eating from that tree? It's just a tree, and it's just fruit, just like any other fruit. So she starts peeling away all the invisible components that were wrapping that tree, and so the Canaanite spirit removes that invisible, ethical, or intangible component. And then you just see it as a physical act, and that there's nothing wrong with what you're doing. But as you do that, as you yield to the girgashite agents, what happens inside of you is that you start losing your ability to operate in the spiritual, because you become. It's like that spirit comes to make you bare, to make you naked and expose you as a mere biological being. It's like you're disrobed of that eternal robe that God wants to cloak us in, to cover us with. So we are. So it's like we remove the invisible spiritual value of not only ourselves but other people, and we start seeing each other as objects or as biological beings. And all the intangible human ethical or spiritual components of our actions, of things, just get stripped away. And the moment they get stripped away, then we don't see anything wrong with what the Canaanite spirit is prompting us to do. So that's what the girgashite agents come to do. And the other thing also is that the girgashite spirit, as we share on the website, is very time-centric. It focuses on chronos time as opposed to the eternal time to the eternity of God. So you start seeing things in terms of the now, and you start worrying about your desires, your needs, or whatever in the now, and you forget about the eternal consequences of what you're doing. The antithesis of the girgashite spirit is the prophetic spirit. And as we share on the website, for example, in the bread sowing article, the prophetic spirit is willing to sow into an invisible field. You could say it seems like when you're operating in the very deeply prophetic, you're sowing, and it seems like you're wasting yourself away, and that there's no benefit in the sowing that you're doing. But as it says in Ecclesiastes, when you cast your bread upon the waters, after many days it will come back to you. So the prophetic spirit is willing to invest and to seem to be losing in the short term in order to gain in the long term. The girgashite spirit is the opposite of that. So it comes to just get you trapped in the now. And when you focus on the now, you stop thinking about the eternal consequences of what you do or not do. And you stop thinking about sowing and sacrificing in the now in order to reap in the future. You stop sowing and reaping, and you start consuming. And the girgashite spirit is one of consumption that is devoid of any spiritual element. So that's what the girgashite agents come to do. So let's just put this back up here. So we've seen Sidon and Heth. They represent the idea, what the list is about, and the tactics being used throughout the list. It's a hidden agenda. As I pray that you will see, the three spirits we've seen so far, the jebusite, the Amorite, and the girgashite, are all operating under a deceit agenda. The jebusite spirit is trying to deceive you into thinking that you're being logical and reasonable. The Amorite spirit tries to deceive you into thinking you were designed to conquer, and as such you should conquer that. And it is true. I mean, we are designed to conquer, but not to take advantage of any opportunity just for the sake of taking it. Some opportunities are not from God, and we're not to take those opportunities necessarily. So that's the deception behind the Amorite agents. And the girgashite agents come to deceive you about the spiritual nature of things. The girgashite agents come to deceive you into thinking that there's nothing spiritual, nothing of spiritual relevance about your action, that they're just human natural actions, and that there's no spiritual consequences or connotations to what you're doing. So there's a deceit agenda going on throughout the list. So we have the jebusite, the Amorite, and the girgashite. And some of you who have visited the website know that we talk about a triangle of evil spirits. The 7 evil spirits form a triangle. 5 are on the outside, and there are 2 evil spirits that are the village spirits that are on the inside. And at the top of this evil triangle, you have the Amorite kings. The Amorite kings are at the pinnacle of the triangle. And on the right side, they have their Jebusite police agents, the ones who enforce their Amorite laws of the soul. And on the left-hand side, they have their secret agents. Just like, for example, in communist countries where the Amorite king is the dictator, like Hugo Chavez or Barack Hussein Obama, if he could do whatever he wanted to in his heart. And on the one hand, they have their Jebusite police, the ones who are visibly enforcing the laws that they are imposing on the people. And then on the other side, they have their Hittite agents, their secret agents, the ones who go and spy on people and start finding out who is for the regime and who's against it, and who start using smearing tactics and all sorts of things to destroy all their enemies in a hidden way. Those are their secret agents. Those are the Hittite spirits. And after that, here you have the girgashite spirit here on the right-hand side, here at the base, the girgashites, and on the left-hand side you have the Canaanites. The Canaanite and the girgashite, the Canaanite is the pastor gone bad, and the girgashite is the teacher gone bad, as we share on the website. These are the 2 female ministries, and these 2 distorted female ministries form the base of the triangle. And then here on the inside you have on the left-hand side you have the hivite, and on the right-hand side you have the parasite. So those are the 7 evil spirits, and I'm sorry for being so disorganized here, or not very neat in the way I'm writing this, but I pray that you will understand all this mess. But so we have the Amorite, the Jebusite, and the girgashite. And notice here, these are the 3 that are mentioned in verse 16 of Genesis 10. The Jebusite, the Amorite, and the Girgashite. The Jebusite, the Amorite, and the Girgashite. So what the Canaanite spirit does to hunt you down is to first attack the right side of your triangle. That's what it does. In other words, the right side is the side of laws and judgments. So these three evil spirits come to destroy your right wall. See, when the Canaanite spirit comes to offer you things, you have a set of scruples, a set of laws and principles inside of you that prevent that thing coming in. So what the Canaanite spirit does is that first it tears down that right wall of scruples and ethics and righteous judgments of the spirit. Once it crumbles that right wall, then it comes in and starts doing its dirty work. So that's what's happening here. And notice that it starts with the Jebusite, which is attacking the laws in your mind, then the Amorite of opportunism, and then it comes down to Girgashite. It's like it starts with the two nobler or higher spirits, and then it brings you down to the Girgashite, to the earthliness. It wouldn't start directly with the Girgashite because then it would be a bit too obvious, and you would kind of pick up on its tactics much more easily. So it starts with the Jebusite, it gets you up to the Amorite, and once you have fallen to those two agents, then it brings you down to the Girgashite. And when you drop down to the Girgashite, then your entire right wall gets broken in, and the Canaanite spirit starts swooping down on you. So it starts swooping down on you in the next verse in Genesis 10:17 with the Hivite, the arkite, and the Sinite. And the Hivite, as you can see, is here on the left-hand side of the triangle. I hope you can see that on the video. So after dismantling your right wall, then it starts going left on you. And what is the Hivite spirit? As we share on the website, the Hivite spirit is a spirit of self-indulgence. It is a spirit that prompts you to seek your self-gratification. It's a spirit of hedonism, a spirit that isolates you in this little island, where this island of pleasure, where you indulge in your own passions, and where you see the world as your oyster, as the world being created to please you. Like a narcissistic Roman emperor that thinks that the whole world, that all of Rome was created for his own pleasure and satisfaction. And it's a very enclosing spirit. You start just thinking about yourself and your pleasure and your satisfaction, and you see everyone as created to serve you and to bless you, like a spoiled little rich brat, kind of a spoiled Richie Rich type spirit. That's what the Hivite spirit is about. So once your right wall has been torn down, then the Canaanite, the Hivite agents start swarming in and prompting you to indulge in this island of self-gratification, this island of pleasure. But the thing is, it's very important to visualize what the Hivite spirit does to you. It degrades you. When you become a Hivite, you become like this disgusting fat man. That's what I see in my spirit when I think of the Hivite. A disgusting fat man, self-indulgent fat man who thinks that the world is there to please him. It's a very black hole-ish type situation. And it's like you degrade yourself into a very, very low level. A very pathetic level. The Hivite spirit is very pathetic when you look at it, and it's ironic because the Hivite spirit it looks very rich on the outside, very prosperous, but it's actually very, very pathetic and very very worthy of contempt, repulsion, and pity, you could say. So that's what, and that's the church of Laodicea in Revelation was a Hivite church. So it thought itself rich and clothed and everything, and the Lord says, but you're naked and you're poor. It is a very self-deceiving and pathetic spirit. So when the enemy starts offering you that, you have to visualize what it's leading you into. It's leading you into this pathetic state of self-indulgence, and you become enclosed. It's like your world gets limited, and you start living just for the sake of the pleasure, and that is a very destructive state to be in. So that's what the Hivite agents come to do. So now that we've seen that, we can see that. So the right wall was torn down. The Hivite agents come to indulge you in this Hivite island of pleasure. And as you start indulging in that Hivite pleasure, then the Canaanite addiction starts kicking in, and you become, in a sense, addicted. And one thing that's very important as you watch these two videos is that we are talking about the Canaanite spirit, which has to do with addictions. So all of this can be taken in a very direct sense with regard to any type of Canaanite addiction. But it goes much more than that, because the Canaanite spirit manifests itself in many, many ways. And it really, at a deeper level, it applies to how you become trapped in the soul matriarchy. So maybe you're not doing drugs, you're not doing any type of strange or weird addiction, but in a certain sense, you can be trapped in a subtler form of a Canaanite oppression under the matriarchy of the soul. You know, all the believers who are anti-judgment, who don't understand the God of Israel, who just begin to feel repulsed when they hear somebody speaking of judgments and the anointing of anathema destruction. All these people have been trapped in a Canaanite mindset, and all that we're saying applies to them, but in a more subtle and more sophisticated way. So I pray that you see this not only in terms of Canaanite addictions, but that you also see it in the context of how people get trapped in the soul matriarchy. You know, that need for for Canaanite communion and communication with other people, that desire for soul communion, which is not necessarily wrong, but many times it is birthed in a spirit of Canaanite contaminated communion, and that desire for earthly fellowship, and why, for example, stations like the E! Entertainment Channel are so popular, and you have people on all these social sites trapped in the spirit of Canaanite soul communion. All of this happens also by this same pattern, even though it's a little less obvious and less, you could say, sinful on the outside, but it's still Canaanite sin on the inside. So we've seen the Hivite agents, so now we have to look at the arkite agents. And the word arkite literally means gnawing. So it has this chewing, constant chewing type connotation. And interestingly enough, it's derived from another word that means tush, T-U-S-H. And if you go online, you'll see that tush so the word tush can refer to a tooth, and it actually refers to a canine tooth, especially in horses. So it's interesting that the word arkite speaks of gnawing, and it's related to a word that is connected to the canine tooth, and that's not a coincidence. Canine. Now, I'll be honest with you. Even from many years ago, from 10 or 11 years ago, when the Lord was sharing these things in my heart, or putting them in my heart, when I would think of arkite, I'd always think of a dog. And I don't know if some of you who have been in contact with dogs or own dogs, some of you might be aware that dogs are very urge-oriented. It's like they are, in some animals and some dogs that I've come across, I sometimes feel, I don't know how to explain it, but it's like you touch the dog and you feel the urges just bubbling all over its body. They can be very urge oriented, and when they get an urge inside of them, it's like you can't control them. You know, some dogs, as you may know, get all crazy when they start smelling food, and they start barking uncontrollably because they are dominated by all these urges. And as I was sharing with you, it's like sometimes you can feel the urge just vibrating on their body spiritually. And that doesn't mean that dogs are bad inherently, but in Scripture, dogs in the negative connotation speak to that unrepressible urge, just living by passions and emotions, and that's why the dog spirit is a figure of the Canaanite spirit. So we can see therefore that the arkite spirit is actually pointing to dogs and to doggy urges, and so we can say that the arkite spirit is pointing to the Canaanite spirit. And you can say, well, isn't this whole list about how the Canaanite spirit turns you into a Canaanite? Yes. So you could say that the arkite spirit is like the Canaanite spirit in its purest form inside the list. You know, it's like New York City is inside New York State. So the arkite is to this list as New York City is to New York State. If I hope that makes sense. So we're right now, when we get to the arkite, we're getting to like the epicenter of Canaanite behavior. So once you have been sold the idea that the world is your oyster, that you have a right to self-indulgence by the Hivite agents, that once you've been deceived into thinking that way, then the arkite spirits of uncontrollable urges start just swarming in, and you start getting dominated by all these urges, and you start gnawing, like this uncontrollable desire to chew, and you can't control that urge. So when you're in the arkite stage, you're in the middle of the addiction, of the Canaanite addiction, just controlling you. You need what the Canaanite spirit is offering you. You just need it. You have to have it. And there's nothing you can do, it seems, to stop it. So that's when you're in the arkite stage, and after that, then you get to the Sinite stage, and that's when you get to that stage. That is a very sad stage, and but we'll leave that for the video that comes after this one, just to avoid making this one too long. But we have already gone through the first, basically the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 agents in this list, and we have 4 more to go, but we'll do that in the next video.